You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We have a special guest in the building.
Yes.
She went to the other HU.
I know you, Hampton.
She went to the other HU, the fake HU, but we let it slide this morning. Kamala Harris.
Yes, U.S. Senator of California,
That's
and I
right.
feel the next president of the United States of America, if
Throw it
she
in the
chooses
air.
to run, Miss Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to the show.
Good morning. I am so happy and honored to be here.
Now, you gonna
join you.
You going to let him diss Howard like that?
Absolutely not. So who beat UNLV? Hampton or Howard?
It was Howard.
Thank you.
It was Howard.
Who has the best homecoming in the world every year?
Hampton.
Howard.
Hampton.
Who produced Thurgood Marshall?
Howard.
Howard.
Right. Howard. Yeah, you got a couple of outright ones
Who
over there.
produced the Black Panther?
We did the we did the costumes we did the costumes for
I'll
Black
share
Panther.
the love
though.
with you. I'm gonna share the love with you.
See, I didn't go to college, but if I was you, I would have said, well, who was stealing from the financial aid department?
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, who was stealing from the financial aid department? So she can hit us back with, well, y'all got bad food over there. So go back and forth. So just let things slide. Well, welcome.
Yes,
Thank
welcome,
you. It's
Senator
good to be
Harris.
here.
Now, for those who may not know, let us know a little about yourself. You're from the Bay Area, right?
I was born in Oakland.
Okay.
And I went to Howard. I went out of Howard to law school in California. I started my career in the DA's office in Oakland, California. And then I was elected, the first Black woman to be elected a district attorney in the state of California, in San
Wow.
Francisco. I was there for 2 terms. And then I was elected Attorney General of California, making me the first woman and the first African-American ever elected as an Attorney General.
And what
Wow.
was she Jamaican too?
Yeah, man.
Wagwan, brethren. So, did you grow up in the era of the Black Panthers?
Yes.
Did they have any influence on you? Or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my parents, look, my sister and I joke, we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting
Wow.
for justice, right? So my parents actually met when they were active in the civil rights movement. My godmother, my Aunt Mary, was one of the founders of the Black Studies Department at San Francisco State, which was the first Black Studies department in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So they were active and they were vocal. And
Jamaican and civil rights activists? I'm surprised you got an inside voice.
yeah, well, you know, Howard trains you to do things like that.
Ooh, stab. Boom, boom, boom. But what got you into politics? Because you did go to Howard. That's a party school, so we
Yeah.
figured you would. Now I'm just joking. But what
Y'all
got
not
you?
gonna be petty all
All
interview
right,
now.
I'm not.
Stop.
But really, what got you into politics? What made you want to say this is the route I want to go?
So, you know, the first office I ran for was freshman class representative at Howard University. But it really was, so the first office that I ran for was, after that, was district attorney of San Francisco. And the reason was, you know, I grew up in a community of folks, like I said, who are marching and shouting. And I said, you know, yes, there is an important role to play on the outside, banging down the door, on bended knee, trying to change the systems. But we also have to be inside the room where the decisions are being made. And I ran for district attorney because I wanted to be the one who was making decisions about what we were going to do with criminal justice policy. And in fact, I wrote a book back in 2008 based on my belief about what we need to do to reform the criminal justice system. And here's how I think about it. Criminal justice policy, we have been offered a false choice. The choice suggesting that you're either soft on crime or you're tough on crime, instead of asking, are we smart on crime, right? And by that, I mean recognizing that, you know, the public health model tells us if you want to deal with a health epidemic, smartest, most effective, and cheapest way to deal with it is prevention first. If you're dealing with it in the emergency room or the prison system, it's too late and it's too expensive. So let's be smart on crime. And that means let's be smart in knowing that if we really want to have public safety, let's prevent crime from happening in the first place, which means focusing on communities that we know need more economic support, need more pathways to economic health and success, doing what we need to do to recognize that there's a direct connection between public education and public safety. So let's prioritize public education and instead of just being only concerned about public safety, because there's a real connection, and it's actually cheaper to focus on educating young people than it is on incarcerating whole communities of people.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I saw you do that I was extremely impressed with. It was the Back on Track program.
Yeah, that's right.
What's that all about?
So Back on Track is a program that I started years ago. I focused on the 18 through 24-year-old young, drug sales offender.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I focused on that population is because there are just a lot of them. And I also focused on that population because whether we were at Hampton or Howard, when we were in college, we were 18 through 24, and we were called college kids.
Right.
Mm.
But when you turn 18 and you're in the system, you're considered an adult.
Right.
Period.
Mhm.
Regardless of the fact that we know that's the very phase of life in which we have invested billions of dollars in this world, in these places called colleges and universities, knowing that that's the prime phase of life where you can mold somebody to be a productive and an accomplished adult. And so I focused on that population, also understanding that when they pick up that first offense, they will be designated a felon for life.
Mm.
And so what we did is essentially I created a program focused on them and basically getting them job counseling. A lot of the young men are fathers, getting them support for what they naturally want to do, which is parent their children, but may not have the skills or the resources. We focused on what to do around housing and just wrap around. And we ended up, as a result of doing that, and then when they would graduate, the program dismissed their charges. But what we also ended up doing is reducing their likelihood of reoffending by a huge percentage. And that was a model of what ended up later by the Justice Department being designated as a model of innovation in law enforcement in the country.
But what do we do with drugs being legalized, I should say marijuana being legalized in so many different states? And a lot of these kids, like you said, are in jail for that same legalized crime now.
We need to decriminalize marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
We have a problem with mass incarceration in our country. And let's be clear, the war on drugs was a failed war. It was misdirected. In essence, and we're now more people are understanding it when we talk about the opioid epidemic, that when you're talking about substance abuse, that's a public health matter. That should not be thought of as a criminal justice matter. And so what we need to do is recognize that we have to get people into treatment where that is appropriate. But as it relates to incarcerating people for marijuana, I think it is long overdue that we recognize we need to change the system.
Absolutely.
It's interesting with the Back on Track program. You've proven that it works.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't more people want to use that as a model all across the country?
Well, people have. There have been folks from Philadelphia to Atlanta to Prince George's County, Maryland, who have replicated Back on Track and found great success. But, when you're trying to change a system and have it think of itself differently, it takes some time. I think it's taking too much time.
Mm-hmm.
But it is good to be able to highlight what has been proven to work, which is focusing on preventing crime before it happens instead of just reacting to crime after it happens.
All right. I want to go back to your Oakland days for a minute because you said the Black Panthers had an influence on you. And it's this whole conversation we've been having about how do we improve relations between police and the communities. And Black Panthers were an organization that actually policed the police. Do you think that an organization like that could exist now in 2018?
I think that one of the greatest advances in the fight for civil rights has been the smartphone.
Oh, okay.
So it's been interesting over the last few years. People would come up to me, Kamala, what all of a sudden is going on with all these cases of police misconduct? What's going on? And I'd look at people and I'd say, you sound like a colonist. Colonist.
Are you calling him a colonizer or a colonist?
Right. Fair enough. But the point being, what colonists do, they go to a place that's been existing that way for thousands of years, and because they're seeing it for the first time, they think they've discovered it, right? So the point being, just because you're seeing it for the first time doesn't mean it just started.
Right.
Communities have been experiencing this for generations. But the great thing about the smartphone has been that now it is undeniable when it happens. There is evidence, sometimes playing for us in real time, as we know. It is audio, it is visual, and it is highlighting a need to reform the criminal justice system around recognizing that we need to do a better job of training police officers around bias, around use of force, around the necessity to de-escalate a situation instead of using force as the first option, as though it is the only option. And more people are now involved in this discussion than ever before because it is not just us who is experiencing it. Now everyone is experiencing it, at least as in terms of seeing it happen. And I think this is part of what has led to the reforms that are starting to take place, but there's still a lot more to do. On the Panthers, remember, because it's really important, in terms of everybody to remember the history of the Panthers. One of the biggest contributions that the Panthers made was their breakfast program.
Absolutely.
Remember that?
Absolutely.
I remember that so well. I remember it as a kid, right?
Yeah.
Their breakfast program. They were feeding the community and protecting the community in that way.
It's scary because you talk about the police on the outside, but then when your kids get to school, it's scary there as well because it feels like they're not safe in school with all these mass shootings. Now, recently they said, well, maybe the teachers should carry weapons.
I think that's ridiculous.
Maybe it should be security. What do you think? How can we secure our kids in school now,
Well, first of all, we have many, many communities where our 6 and 7-year-olds are going to sleep at night hearing gunfire.
Absolutely.
They are experiencing such trauma that is undiagnosed and untreated. Babies of our community who have regularly attended funerals of somebody who was killed as a result of gun violence, having family members. It may have even happened in front of them. So we have enough trauma in our community that we need to deal with without expecting that our second grader is going to now go to school and look up in the front of the class at their teacher and she's strapping a gun.
Word.
That doesn't make any sense. That does make no sense. So in this discussion, when we're talking about school safety, there are things that we need to address that include thinking about why is this an issue? And part of it is that we have not passed meaningful, smart gun safety laws in this country. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how the NRA has grabbed people by their different parts of their body.
The testicles. There's a medical way to say it. What's the medical term? Testicles?
Testicles. Medical term.
Right.
and has caused people to have a lack of courage to address the fact, again, another false choice. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and I also want smart gun safety laws. Assault weapons shouldn't be walking the streets of a civilized country.
I agree.
We should have universal background checks. It makes sense. It's just practical that you might want to know before someone can buy a gun that they've been found by a court to be mentally unstable. You just might want to know that. That's smart.
Absolutely.
And so when we talk about school safety, we've got to look at it in the context of that discussion. And as far as I'm concerned, here's the bottom line. And remember that 11-year-old who spoke at the March for Our Lives after the Stoneman Douglas shooting? And she said, we know the difference between right and wrong, but adults need to know that and they need to act. Here's the thing on this issue. One can say, well, why haven't we now at this point with all of these, with Stoneman Douglas, with all those babies that were killed, 6 and 7-year-old, 20 6 and 7-year-old babies were killed in Connecticut, right? We've had all these tragedies. And I'll say to you, we don't need another tragedy to act. Like we've got a good list of tragedies. So it's not like we're waiting for the big tragedy to act. We have that. We're not waiting for good ideas. The good ideas have been had. Universal background check. We need to have an assault weapons ban. The missing ingredient to get something done is for Congress to have the courage to act. Bottom line. And that's where I would say, okay, so then what can we as people who want to encourage Congress to act do? What can we do? Let's focus on the 2018 elections. Let's focus on electing people who will have the courage and getting rid of people who don't.
Well, even with that said, when everybody saw the police shootings happening, Barack Obama was in office. Why didn't he have the courage to act to implement something to where police weren't so gung-ho?
Well, I think that it's one of his big regrets that he was not able to get smart gun safety laws passed. In terms of the reforms, listen, Eric Holder, who was appointed by Barack Obama to be the U.S. Attorney General, and the United States Department of Justice under Barack Obama did some really good work. They started opening pattern and practice investigations, investigating various police departments around the country who had a pattern and practice of racial discrimination and excessive force. And you know what's going on now? Under this guy?
Jeff Sessions. You've been on his ass, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And under him, they're closing those pattern and practice investigations. Under the previous administration, there were consent decrees where there had been a finding of misconduct. The court kicked in and said, you have to act a certain way, and we're going to watch that. They're shutting down all of those.
Mm.
They're reviving the war on drugs. They're reviving mandatory minimum sentences. And, again, that's why we have got to be vigilant at this moment in time, because we are looking at an administration that is rolling back the clock in a profound way.
Why is Jeff Sessions doing that, though? Like, is it really just Donald Trump trying to erase everything Barack Obama did, or is that what they really, really want? Like, they want to take us backwards, so to speak?
Listen, I think this has been on Jeff Sessions' agenda for a very long time. Don't forget, Coretta Scott King spoke out against Jeff Sessions when he was up years and years and years ago for an appointment. This is part of who he is. This is his history. This is his mission. And he is silently and maybe not so silently carrying it out right before us.
Why aren't you afraid to speak out against him?
I do speak
No,
out.
that's what I mean. I worded that wrong. I'm tired. Why aren't you afraid?
Because we have to speak truth.
Got you.
Charlamagne, we have to speak truth. You
Absolutely.
know what? This is a moment in time that's actually requiring all of us to check ourselves about whether we're going to have the courage to speak and to speak truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes some people feel, no matter how much it may visit upon us criticism or expose us to attacks. We've got to speak truth. We've got to speak truth about what is happening with this administration. Also, because as leaders, the people know. They know in their hearts, they know intuitively, instinctively that things are wrong. And we need to put the label on it when we see what is actually happening from the inside. And so that's part of why I do it. Because I believe that people have a right to know what their government is doing for them and to them. And, come what may in terms of any response.
How do we get our country back in order, though? It just seems like ever since Trump came in office, it just seems like it's just been an outspurt of racism going on. And it seems like it's hurting our kids more than anything else out there.
So I travel around the country, and I will tell you that I'm not buying the suggestion that we are divided as a country. And here's why I say that. When you wake up in the middle of the night with that thought that's been weighing on you, maybe it's, some people call it the witching hour, 3 o'clock in the morning, when you wake up in a cold sweat with that thing that's been worrying you, it is never through the lens of the party with which you're registered to vote or, the demographic a pollster put you in. And for the vast majority of us, that thought has to do with one of just a very few things: our personal health, the health of our children or our parents. Can I get a job, keep a job, pay the bills by the end of the month? For so many of our students, can they pay off their student loans? The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And we've got to hold on to that in this fight right now. And then look to 2018, frankly, and the elections that are coming up in almost 200 days as an opportunity to act. What I love about this moment with this administration in power is people are acting. Look back to the Women's March.
Yes.
Look to the March for Our Lives.
Absolutely.
The March for Science. Because also this administration is putting forward policies that basically say science should not be the basis of public policy, which is ridiculous. But people are taking to the streets in a way they never have. And in that way, our democracy is working. Now we just got to take to the streets and then walk those streets to the polling place and vote. Because they used to say we couldn't vote. Legally, we weren't allowed to vote. Now they say we won't. We need to get out and vote. Because us voting is connected to every one of the other issues. Us voting is connected to who's going to be in office and how they think about criminal justice policy. Who's going to be in office and pay attention to something like the rate of black babies and infant mortality? Who's going to pay attention to the fact that young black men are still at the bottom of the economic ladder in terms of opportunity, much less success and economic health? Who's in office is going to make a difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like, you need villains to make superheroes.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that we had President Barack Obama in the White House. He was a hero. That kind of made us think everything was cool, so we didn't do the work. And I think if Hillary was in the White House, that kind of would have been the same situation. So I think with Trump being in there, it just made everybody put their cape on, so to speak.
And to see that also we can't take anything for granted.
Mm-hmm.
There's Coretta Scott King actually said it. The fight for civil rights must be fought and won with each generation. And I think what she meant there is that it's the nature of the fight, of the struggle, that whatever gains we make, they will not be permanent. It's just the nature of it. Mm-hmm. The gains we make will not be permanent. So we have to be vigilant. And when we see things sliding back, it's not a moment to throw up our hands. It's a moment to roll up our sleeves and get to work.
Absolutely.
And fight.
Now, and I know you, of course, you just mentioned Me Too and Time's Up. You're big supporters of that. Yeah. But you're also a Too Short fan.
Yes, I am Too Short from Oakland. Yes, I am.
How does that work?
Let me tell you.
What's my
favorite word, Senator Harris? Huh? What's my favorite word, Senator Harris?
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Too Short, straight from Oakland.
But you can like both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I love music.
Absolutely. Oh, I saw your playlist.
Did you see my playlist?
Yeah. What was it? The African American Music Appreciation Month playlist.
Yes.
You had Tribe Called Quest. Check the Rhyme.
But I did not have Bootsy.
Bootsy Collins?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I left out Bootsy.
You had Childish Gambino, though.
Yes, I did.
And that's a Bootsy Collins ripoff, by the way.
That's
Redbone.
That is true. That is true.
Now, they call you the female Barack Obama. That's what I've seen when I Google your name.
By the way.
Now, are you considering do you see yourself possibly running for president? Is that in your eyes?
Right now, I'm just focused on what's in front of me. I've seen too many people focus on that thing out there, and they trip over the thing right in front of them.
True.
So what's in front of you? 2018.
2018.
Okay.
I was just in Detroit last weekend, campaigning and talking to folks about the need to get out and vote. I'll be all over many states. I'm going to be in Chicago. I'm going to be in Wisconsin. I'll be in Florida. Probably go to Philly. We really have to turn out. Look what happened in Alabama. Everybody should really see and remember what happened just in a recent election, where Doug Jones, a white Democrat in Alabama, won. They have been saying that there are no more white Democrats in the South. And that's a bad statement about who we are as a country if that were true. But he won. And we have to see the math and just break it down, unpack it. The math is that a white Democrat won in the South because of black women. Black women elected Doug Jones, a United States Senator from the state of Alabama. And so our vote really matters when we get out. It makes huge differences in what will be national policy, local policy, and who will be seen and who will be heard, and through what lens.
It was over 90% of black men until we came out.
And that's right. That's true. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
You was on the debate team in college.
I was.
How does that help you in your line of work?
It taught. First of all, it taught you how to come back from an argument. Mm-hmm. It teaches you how to stand in front of a room of people and express your point, and then when your point is being attacked, to come back and respond. It teaches you how to think quickly, and it gives you confidence in the fact that you can stand in front of a room of people and state a position and defend it. Because sometimes, for so many of us, we're the only one who is like us in a room. Mm-hmm. And when you're the only one like you in a room, there is a natural tendency to want to just kind of blend in. But what you learn during debate, or what you learn at an HBCU, or if you have the blessing of having a family or a community that teaches you, you learn instead that when you're in that room, you got to speak up. And you've got to acquire the skills to know how to do that and to have the confidence to do it. I mentor a lot of people, and I always tell them, you're going to be in that room. Your entire life, you will have many experiences where you're the only one like you in that room. Only one looks like you, only one who's had the experiences you've had. And when you sit in that room, you have to remember, we are all in that room with you. We are all in that room with you.
Yeah, what's the Maya Angelou quote? I'm not alone because I stand with 10. Got 10,000 with
10,000,
me. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's funny because I put my kids in debate class because of that, to be able to use their words to fight back and not have to use their hands and
That's
still hurt
right.
just the same.
And you got to objectively see both sides, right?
And also, and to your point, also, the great thing about learning debate is that you learn there are rules of debate.
Right.
You know, because also to your point, when you argue, some people would suggest that's pure emotion, and that if you're getting in an argument with somebody, you're just emotional and unreasonable. What debate teaches you is no, it's actually quite civilized to stand up and disagree with someone, and there are rules about how you do it. Because that is what is done among thinking people.
Absolutely.
You do debate. I mean, you can go back to history in different forms of debate, the dozens.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
was debate.
100%.
That was debate.
Yes, until you didn't like what they said and you just
Right,
fought.
and you just keep coming
You just started fighting.
right?
Yeah.
But that was debate.
If you had to debate why the Trump presidency is good for America, how would you do it?
I think you made the point earlier. It reminds us that we can take nothing for granted. It reminds us of another thing, which is, you know, if you think of our democracy or our republic being a tabletop, it stands on 4 legs, and those legs are 3 independent co-equal branches of government, and the 4th leg being a free and independent press. This is a moment in time that is showing the beauty of that design, because where the administration does things like putting in place a Muslim ban, does things like denying these dreamers their protection under DACA, well, even if the Congress didn't act, the courts have acted. That's beautiful. The courts are saying, no, we're going to stop this. We're going to stop a transgender ban. We're gonna step up. Because there are checks and balances in the way that we've designed this democracy. Look at the press. I mean, what you do on this show, as you know, it's journalism, speaking out, the First Amendment. So there are aspects of what's happening now that also highlight the beauty of the design, flawed though it may be, the beauty of the design, the checks and balances.
I have a question. You know, you mentioned, of course, we went to HBCUs. How important is the HBCU? Because we got away from it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a lot of the colleges, and attendance and enrollment is low. So how important is HBCU to you and especially Black families?
Let me tell you, I am who I am today for 2 reasons. Because of my mother and the family I was raised in, and Howard University and HBCU. What you and I know, when we walked onto that campus for the first time, we were surrounded by people that look like us, everywhere, everybody. You walk onto, and I'll just speak about Howard, but I know Hampton is the same. You walk onto that campus, you can look over one area and you will see a bunch of young African Americans who are students who are in the business school walking around with briefcases. You look over at another area and they're walking around in leotards because they're in the School of Fine Arts. The football captain and star and the homecoming queen and the debate team, and there are sororities and fraternities. And what you learn at an HBCU is you do not have to fit into somebody's limited perspective on what it means to be young, gifted, and Black. You can be all those things. When I was at Howard, I pledged a sorority. I was on the debate team. I was the chair of the Economic Society. And I went to my share parties too. And you didn't have to choose. You could be fully actualized. And there was such beauty to that because this country still has such a limited view of what it means for a person to be young and smart and Black. And so at those years when you're learning your identity, to be in that environment where basically everybody just says to you, you can be whatever you want to be. And by the way, and if you don't, it's because you need to work harder, right? Because that's the other thing that happens. You can't walk away and say, oh, it's because of my skin color that I didn't get that. Nope. Nope, that's not it. So it's a wonderful place to learn who you are and to be proud of who you are and to leave then with the confidence of walking into the world. Also knowing one other thing. You know, people from time to time will come up to you and they'll say, oh, you're special. You're unique. And I tell people, don't let anybody tell you that, because there is something about being told that also suggests you're the only one like you, which means you're alone. And what an HBCU reminds us of, no, we come with people. We got people. There are a lot of us. We're not alone, right?
What made you want to go to HBCU? Was it a different world?
No, I had family members that went to Howard.
Okay.
And I wanted to go to Howard. Yeah.
Got you.
Well, she has to go. So one last one, bro.
Well, I saw you talking about corporate donations.
Yeah.
And you said it depends whether you would take them or not.
You know, I was asked, I did a town hall a couple weeks ago in California, and I was asked that question. And I wasn't expecting the question, and I thought about it afterwards. And I'm going to tell you, Charlamagne, I actually, I think that money has had such an outside influence on politics. And especially with the Supreme Court determining Citizens United, which basically means that big corporations can spend unlimited amounts of money influencing a campaign, right? We're all supposed to have an equal vote. But money has now really tipped the balance between an individual having equal power in an election to a corporation. So I've actually made a decision since I had that conversation that I'm not going to accept corporate PAC checks.
Wow.
I'm not.
So how you gonna raise money for campaigns and stuff?
Well, you know, I've raised so far this year $3 million for my colleagues for the 2018 election cycle, and most of that money has been like in $18, $20 increments. People are turning out.
Well, what's the website? Yeah,
Well, yeah, how can people help? Yeah, how can people help?
Go to KamalaHarris.org and you will find it.
And listen,
Kamala Harris, Harris.
If you decide to run for president in 2020, we'll do a fundraiser for you right here on the radio.
No, we definitely will.
We did one last year for Harry Belafonte's organization, Change for Change.
Good,
we raised
good.
like 800 grand.
Wow.
So we can get you $1 million or two.
Okay.
If you decide to run.
to
Has that
run.
ever been a dream of yours? Have you ever thought about it?
I have so many dreams.
Good answer.
I do, though. I really do. I really do. And just ending on that note, you know, I feel very optimistic. I'm a realist. I see the truths, the hard truths, the difficult truths, but I am also optimistic. I do see the beauty of, you know, everything that you raised in terms of the reaction and the other side of the tragedy of what's happening. And that gives me a great sense of optimism about our future. You know, I ended last year, man, in 2017, around New Year's, I was like, ooh, that was rough. That was just a whole thing. And I decided going into 2018, you know what? I don't like feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be mad. I don't want to have full of anxiety. So my New Year's resolution for 2018 is that I am going to be a joyful warrior.
Yes.
A joyful warrior. And in the history of our people, that is what we have always done. We march,
Absolutely.
we shout, we sing, we dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at who just got the Pulitzer Prize.
Mr. Kendrick Lamar.
All right.
You had him on your playlist, too. You had Humble
yes,
on there.
Yes, of course. But look at that. Look at that, because look at Beyonce and what she did at Coachella.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It has always been as part of our history that our artists, everybody is part of the movement. Everyone understands that it's about the expression of feeling. And we can do that with joy and with conviction and with purpose. So there you go.
Great. I think God is setting us up for a woman of color president in 2020.
I'm with it.
I think that it's Senator Kamala Harris. I think she's our future president.
I'm with it.
And I hope God puts his hands on her and says, you know what? I want you to do this.
All right.
That's
I
what
hope so as well.
God's plan. Put that on your playlist too, by Dre.
All right.
Well, we thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you for coming.
All right. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.